In 2018, Octopath Traveler was released, and honestly, I was taken aback by everything I had seen of the game. Visually, the game was absolutely stunning. The 2D pixel art upon a 3D environment is a concept I need to see explored in more RPGs. Unreal Engine 4 does this game so much justice. The particle effects and environment details are presented flawlessly even on the Nintendo Switch. The game seems inspired off of Final Fantasy VI, a game I got a decent amount of hours into, but unfortunately a glitch caused my save file to be bricked. It's a game I plan to go back to with the eventual Pixel remaster though. Everything about the game seems exactly like what I've been wanting, especially around its time of release since I've been going through the Final Fantasy games for the first time. However, after beginning the game, it didn't take more than around 10 hours for me to end up dropping the game. Strangely, it felt like fatigue would build up in me every time I played this game. I noticed with the game's break system, it felt like it was kinetic enough to be a passable system, but the large amount of HP bosses carry made each one feel like it took 1,000 years. And if I'm honest, when I noticed that, I started feeling that way about the regular random encounters as well. Each party member only wields one kind of weapon, so depending on the enemy, it could take forever to actually be able to break them. So despite how excited I was for this game, I ended up dropping it, and it wasn't until 2021, thanks to my friend Prodigy,
Who, me?
that I realized Octopath Traveler is a freaking masterclass video game, and 2018 Jordan was being pretty stupid. So to rewind a bit, there's a few aspects of the game's mechanics that I got wrong back in 2018, which led to the fatigue I was feeling from playing the game. While the aspect of large pools of HP for bosses was true, the path to knocking them down was where I was going wrong. Like I mentioned earlier, the primary gimmick of battles is the break system. Basically, all enemies in the game have a set amount of armor of varying strengths that must be destroyed if you want to deal the maximum amount of damage possible in combat. This isn't where my issue lied. Where my mistakes came from was how I went about breaking each enemy. So if you actually want to break an enemy, you have to exploit their weakness, which can easily be discovered by just trying out any type of basic attack or magic. The thing about basic attacks though is that there's many different kinds, those being swords, polearms, daggers, axes, bows, and staffs. But in addition to this, at first all party members only have one kind. So depending on who you have in your party and what point you're at, it's extremely likely you won't have something you need in order to break an enemy when you want to. For example, if the enemy has 5 armor, but they're only weak to swords, bows, and electric magic. At first, I'd have no idea what they'd be weak against, and even less so that I'd even encounter this specific enemy with these specific weaknesses. This was my biggest gripe with the game. If the enemy had 5 armor and I only had 1 or 2 things to fully exploit his weaknesses with, I'd have to essentially waste all my other party members' turns by settling for what's basically chip damage and go through numerous sets of turns just to fully break them. But what's even worse is that when they are broken, I have less people able to do maximum damage. Though everyone will do more damage to them now that they're broken, only 1 to 2 people will have what will really do a maximum amount of damage possible during that turn. However, this is the part where we shake our heads in shame at the me from 2018. Not only is this something that can be easily avoided, but the game makes it semi-obvious how to avoid this scenario. So this game adopts the familiar job system for its characters. Each character naturally has a job at the start of their adventure, totaling up to 8 different jobs. However, while exploring the world, you can actually find shrines that contain the essence needed for each of these jobs. Getting these will allow you to bestow that job onto any character you want. For example, I have 4 people I can use in battle at once. Their jobs are Warrior, Apothecary, Scholar, and Thief. But by finding these shrines around the world, I can add a secondary job on top of their original primary job. That Warrior is now a Warrior Hunter character. The Apothecary is now an Apothecary Cleric. The Scholar is now a Scholar Dancer, and the Thief is now a Thief Merchant. With these additional jobs, the array of weapons and abilities for each individual is expanded. Like the Warrior, who could only wield swords and polearms, can now wield swords, polearms, axes, and bows, making him now wield 4 potential weaknesses for enemies, making it possible to break enemies twice as fast for just a single character. So when you have 4 characters, all with more possibilities to break the enemies, it all around speeds up the flow of battle. When acquiring secondary jobs, it turns a snail's paced adventure into a high-speed action journey. However, this doesn't outright make combat a joke. If anything, I think this is the bare minimum of what makes beating this game feasible. I mainly think this way because of how many enemies that can be on screen at once. When you have 4 to 5 enemies on screen, this is when you start to realize that your added capabilities have to be spread amongst all of your foes, which can leave you still not breaking all enemies in a single turn. But the thing is, that's okay. your primary goal should be to simply maximize a turn. If you can weaken most enemies, you can lead yourself in another turn to breaking all enemies at once. This is much more feasible by the other aspect of combat I've yet to bring up, and that's boost mode. Octopath Traveler has a boost system in its combat. The way it works is that each turn you gain BP, or boost points. With that BP you gain, you can use it to augment your powers to crazy levels. If it's your turn, you can use 3 BP that adds 3 more attacks to your turn. So where you normally only attack the enemy the one time with their weakness, you can hit them 4 times with one character. This works with both magic and basic attacks. Though I find a good balance of this is that you're locked into whatever you decide, so if you chose to a basic attack at level 4, you can only use those attacks and not your more powerful special attacks. Using magic in this way still requires SP2, so it's totally possible to put yourself in a bad spot this way. It goes even further that after you use your BP, you don't gain any the following turns, so it makes you have to plan accordingly. This is a great way to balance things in my eyes. It adds a relative risk versus reward system to the combat. Taking a step back here, earlier I mentioned how the game includes a secondary job mechanic which greatly improves the flow of the game. However, I didn't mention that beyond the 8 jobs you can acquire, allowing each character to have a subclass, there also exists 4 advanced job shrines in the game, all being defended by a guardian, which are essentially optional super bosses. These fights are hard. Extremely hard. Even with everything we've acquired, I wouldn't be surprised if it took you around half an hour to actually beat them. They challenge you on every single thing we've learned while playing the game. They can even lock off some of their own weaknesses, making it harder to break them. Having to deal with this, the status effects, the sheer power behind their attacks, they're definitely some of the toughest fights in the game, but they're absolutely worth it for the rewards, those being the aforementioned advanced jobs: War Master, Star Seeker, Rune Lord, and Sorcerer. These jobs are the most amazing things in the freaking game. They greatly expand upon existing jobs, like War Master is a perfected version of Warrior, which now allows them to use all 6 weapons alongside letting them attack all enemies on the field at once with different types of weapons. Sorcerer is a perfected version of Scholar, which now lets them use all types of magic and use them 3 times in a single turn. Every job in the game also includes a most powerful ability, one that can only be used at the maximum boost mode, so regardless of the job, you're really bringing the pain to your foes or helping out the party a crazy amount. The skills in this game are freaking awesome. And speaking of skills, I want to touch on some of the support skills you can have equipped on each character. You can only equip up to 4 of them at once on a single character, so with the various amounts you'll acquire throughout the game, you'll have to determine what fits your fighting style the most. That, and of course what may work the best depending on the scenario. Sometimes for a boss fight, you may have to switch around what you have equipped, but overall, I love these support skills. There's so many different kinds with extremely helpful abilities. I'd even go as far to say that down to the individuals of them, they won me the fight against the true final boss. One incredible support skill that I made sure all my damage dealers had equipped was Surpassing Power, as it lets you exceed the normal max damage cap and increases it to 99,999. Yeah, the setups you can make in this game can take you to dealing that much damage. It all depends on the moves you make. Other ones like extra EXP were a no-brainer and really helped me get to the levels I needed to get those advanced or legendary jobs. Another highlight is Hang Tough, a merchant ability, which essentially makes it to where if an attack where it would normally kill you when you still had some HP left, instead of killing you, it'll leave you with 1 HP, which is a godsend. Sacrificing a turn to heal instead of having to sacrifice a turn to revive someone and then another to heal them is a much better outcome. I've mentioned it a few times in the video already, but I really want to talk about how this specific part of the game made me feel gameplay wise, so no worries, there won't be any spoilers for the story or true ending, but getting to the true final boss was probably the most stressful and anxiety inducing gaming experience I've ever had. So essentially, there are 8 bosses you have to fight in order to access the true final boss. This I have zero problem with. You can save beforehand, buy what you need, the works. However, you need to do this in the style of a boss rush. You need to beat all 8 super powerful bosses and the true final boss in all their forms in one run. So if you die, you have to start all of that over again. This is maddening, it's disgusting, and honestly downright evil. Is this my hurt feelings talking? Maybe, but I genuinely felt like this was extremely poor design. The game has never been this restricted before, so I don't understand why now. I won't specify which one, but at a certain point during this endeavor, you're required to use all characters, meaning the way the game had conditioned us to mainly stick with our go-to characters is thrown out the window. So if you didn't grind up these characters, you basically didn't use the whole game and never had a reason to. Oops. I think the worst part is that I'm extremely stubborn at the most random times, and I hate myself for this being one of those times. But in the end, I did it. I mean, only one of my party members survived, but who cares? I didn't have this recorded, unfortunately, and let's be real here, I'm not replaying those fights just to get footage of it, but I do have the achievement to prove it. But with all this being said, Octopath Traveler is a masterclass quality RPG. I truly enjoyed every moment of the game after I stopped being stupid. I truly think there's genius game design behind this product, and it makes me happy that we can still see inventive mechanics in a turn-based style. Turn-based games nowadays are stuck with the stigma of being lesser than action games, when I couldn't disagree more. I often find that because turn-based games often feel the need to try harder to stand alongside action games, we end up with some really unique and fun battle systems that often have more depth than their action-based competitors. Not sure if that's a hot take, but hey, it's my video and my opinion, but I'd love to hear yours. Have you played Octopath Traveler? Was your experience similar to mine and how you finally got into it? Leave me a comment and let me know. If you enjoyed the video, leave me a like and subscribe if you want to see more RPG videos. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Kingdom Ace. Remember to play some games, have some fun, and enjoy your day today.